next is a discussion actually between Professor Dr. Ervin Laszlo and Gregg Braden, which is also done by pre-recording. Now, Gregg Braden is a 5-time New York Times best-selling author, scientist, and renowned pioneer in the emerging paradigm based on science, spirituality, social policy, and human potential. To date, his research has led to 15 film credits and 12 award-winning books that are now in over 40 languages. His chapter in the Great Upshift is Awakening the Power of the New Human Story. So now I think we'll play that video.
Ervin, this is a dance, my friend, and I'm going to follow your lead in this dance.
Well, that's you are the dancer. Wonderful. I look forward to it.
Thank you.
Gregg Braden, one of the most admired, appreciated, and known media personalities today. Anybody who has a problem, who has worries, and says, turn to Gregg. Gregg always has an answer. And this is a wonderful privilege to be able to talk with you, Gregg, today. Thank you for coming online.
Ervin, it is my honor, my pleasure, and my privilege. As I said, this is a dance. I'm going to follow your lead, and I know we have a big conversation here.
We are dancing together. We have to dance the dance of evolution, the dance of life, so that we move on from where we are now to a better world, to that is in line, perhaps in line for us. But how do we reach that? I would like to talk about this with you informally. Get your thoughts, get your ideas. Where are we? We are apparently at a very critical point, almost like a bifurcation point. And there are various ways we could go forward. Perhaps we can't predict where we are going, but we can influence it. How can we do something to align ourselves with that trend which is bringing forth in evolution, bringing forth life and consciousness? How can we align ourselves so that the next step in this very eventful evolution that we have had for humanity the last 100, 200 years, how can this come up to a positive conclusion, to the next step, to the higher rungs of evolution for humanity? I just want to get your idea. How do we dance this way? How do we dance toward a higher level of evolution for humanity?
Well, Ervin, I think the question you're asking is perhaps the most important question that we can ask of ourselves, because it requires us to be conscious of the way that we think. And all of our progress begins with the way that we see ourselves, the way we think of ourselves, the story that we tell ourselves. You know, I was recently in a live event, Ervin, and I asked the audience a question. And I think the answer to the question is going to lay the foundation for what you and I will say here. I asked them, I said, how many people, raise your hands if you want a better world? And everybody raises their hands. So then my question was, what would that world look like? People know what they don't like. They have not put a lot of thought into what they want the world to look like. But here's the thing, Ervin, this is where it gets so interesting. The people that did answer me, their answers were based upon existing systems. They had to revert to what we have now to tell me what they want to change. That's very different from thinking and imagining and feeling a beautiful world of wholeness, of life, of peace, cooperation. How do we envision this new world without comparing it necessarily to what we already have? And I think this is one of the most important things that we can do collectively and individually. And Ervin, for me, I think it comes down to what we call our values. What is it that we cherish as individuals in our lives? What do we cherish as families, as communities, as societies, as nations, as a planet? Identify clearly the values that we cherish, and rather than have those values on the periphery, bring them front and center and make those values the foundation, make them the cornerstone for any policies, for any laws, for any of the processes that we are creating to move us into the new world. Because if we do not honor our most cherished values, then we miss the mark when it comes to a world that works for everyone. So I think this is perhaps one of the most important things that we can do for ourselves. Ervin, we identify what it is that we cherish in our lives. Is it our sovereignty? Is it our health? Is it specific freedoms? Is it our relationship to the earth? Is it our relationship to God? Whatever that is, we have to identify those values. But when I ask people to do that so often, Ervin, what they do is they take what we have and then they try to change it into something better, rather than imagining and creating a system that can work regardless of the system that we have today. Does that make sense if I say it that way?
Absolutely, absolutely. The word that comes to mind as you speak is vision. Having a vision not only of what we have today and of the possibilities of picking it up and touching it up here and there and manipulating it a bit, but having a vision of truly who we are and what this world is and where can we go. I'm thinking more and more these days that the next turn in this event, perhaps in this eventful evolution of humanity, which could be an upshift, evolving out of a current downshift, upshift to a higher level of evolution, higher level of being on this planet. But I'm thinking more and more, that is not an arbitrary thing that we can just think up. There is something there, something deep that we can access, which already predisposes us toward a higher level, toward becoming more of what we truly are. I'm very much aware, as you know, of evolution as a universal phenomenon, something that happens to us, something that happens to the world, and it happens independently of whether we want it or not. We can influence it, we can make it good or bad, we can turn it this way or that, but evolution is something that happens. Now, in that sense, that the next evolution that is in store for us is not an arbitrary something we just dream up, something which is waiting for us, which is there. So, Gregg, these days, I'm beginning to use another concept in addition to vision, and that's the term mission. Not a religious sense, purely in a sense of a transcendental, esoteric sense, but in a sense in which it's embedded in the universe. Maybe we, a conscious species, is not here purely by chance. That, I think, is the key concept that we have to look at today. The universe itself could not have evolved to this level of complexity and coherence in the time given, 17.7 or 8 billion years since the Big Bang, purely by chance interactions. There is something guiding it. Pure chance couldn't have produced the DNA of a fruit fly in this period of time, according to statistical analysis. So there is something, and that something is manifest in us as conscious beings. We are not here by chance. It's not a fluke, and our consciousness is not a byproduct of our brain's activity. We are not here just to live and to manage to not to live as long as we can. We are here also to accomplish something which has great significance. Now, the religions always talked about it, the spiritual systems always told us the will of God, the higher destiny, etc. I think now we can recognize that the universe that we investigate in physics, in cosmology, in biology, that this universe also has a direction, has a destination, has a vector towards which it's moving. And that is our mission, our universal cosmic mission, to follow that vector and to live up to it. Because I think we need something more than the pragmatic sense that I do something for myself. I try to live as well as I can. I try to do what I can for you, but not always necessarily good. These practical questions are important, but there is more to that. Maybe we should realize it collectively as well as individually, that we are here for a purpose, not a divine purpose outside of the universe, a purpose that's embedded in the universe, embedded in a universe which has every information in it, in every part of it, in this totally systems-like universe. This is a realization that if we get to, it will help us to move forward with confidence, with trust, with recognition that we are a miraculous being. Einstein said, you have two ways to live your life. Everything is a miracle or nothing is. Everything is a miracle. He said that himself. And we are a miracle. So we move forward as a miraculous being to the next step. This is our destiny. And this is our mission. If we could only recognize it and move in that direction, I think that upshift that we've been talking about, it's around the corner. But it needs to cohesion. It needs to understanding. It needs that final push, which means that we are for it. We want to do that. It's beyond our everyday purposes. It's something larger than we are, but it's in us. We are testimony to it. We are embedding it. We are producing it. If we could have that as a sense, I think we'll have a very good chance of moving forward. I just want to add one more thing, and I want to ask you how to develop this. One more thing. We are already moving in a direction which few people recognize as such, but it is an important direction. We are moving towards a planetary level in almost everything we do. Climate change is planetary. Violence, war is becoming planetary. Even if it's for peace, should be obviously planetary. The mission, the misery problem, the refugees are becoming a global planetary problem. We are moving to a next level where we are not just individuals, we are people pulling together. We are people living, sharing a planet. And that is we are becoming gradually and actually quite rapidly a planetary species, a species that acts on the level of the whole planet. Everything we do affects the rest of it. And we are all together in this. We are beginning to recognize it as a very positive sign. What we now need is this recognition that this togetherness is leading us in a direction that is laid down in the universe, in this evolutionary systems, coherence, oneness-oriented universe that we can approach, as you are saying always to all your followers, with coherence, with love, with understanding. This is the great challenge. I think we could move toward it if we recognize that we are not alone. Not only are we human beings, we are evolving beings of life, manifestations of life, with a mission to bring that life, that consciousness forward. I talk too much. Gregg, tell me what you think. How can we move in this direction?
Well, Ervin, what I think is that you've just encapsulated so eloquently and so beautifully the theme of the entire evolutionary process that we're undergoing. What you're speaking of is precisely what we began this conversation talking about. The way that we think of ourselves determines the choices that we're going to make individually and collectively. And we as a society have been conditioned to think of ourselves as weak, powerless, frail, and flawed individuals. We are conditioned to see ourselves as weak and as flawed. And there is a movement in the world right now that believes that our flaws can be corrected through technology. So the thinking is that we are looking outside of ourselves to technology for the solutions, when the reality is the solutions are inherent within our very being. What you said is so powerful. We are, as a scientist, when I look at evolutionary biology, when I look at genetics, and I can look at specific chromosomes, chromosome number 2, a mysterious fusion of chromosomes that is not possible in nature, chromosome 7, that allows our brain and our tongue and our mouth to connect in the way that no other form of life can do for complex speech and the ability to sing and to share ideas. Those fusions, those mutations happened quickly. They happened about 200,000 years ago. They're not the product of a long, slow evolutionary process. And that tells us that there is another force that is in play. We may not fully understand the force, but we have to say that there is some higher force that is at play here. And Ervin, what it comes down to for me, people say to me, what can we do? What can we do right now? I'm going to use a word, and then I'll define that word. In our ancient texts, they invite us in this time of extremes to awaken our own divinity. Now, when I use the word divinity, some people link that with religion. But if you look at the definition, this is really interesting, Ervin. The word divinity is the ability to transcend perceived limitations, and that's all it is. So I think we have reached a point in our evolutionary process where the world is pushing us to transcend, to become more than the limitations that we have imposed upon ourselves. They may not even be real limitations. This is our creativity. This is our imagination. This is our deep intuition. And as we awaken our own personal divinity within us, we will begin to think and make the choices in the world around us that reflect what we're talking about, because those choices will make sense within the context of our own power, of our own divinity. But we're at this very powerful crossroads right now where mainstream media and corporations and high tech are pushing us into a technological solution when in reality, our solution is found within ourselves by becoming the best version of ourselves. When we awaken our divinity, we have powerfully enhanced immune response to whatever contagions there are in the world. In the presence of our divinity, we are resilient to change. We can embrace that change in a healthy way. We awaken the longevity enzymes in our bodies in the presence of our divinity, not just for long life, but if you're living a long life, it means you are healing on a very deep level every moment of every day. These are all facets of our divinity. So as we awaken, as we feel empowered and awaken the deep truth of the extraordinary potential within us as human and our biological imperative to evolve into the highest expression of our divinity, that is reflected in the world around us. So how do we do that? It's very simple. We become the best version of ourselves, whatever that means, in each moment, in each day. The best emotional version, the best psychological version, the best spiritual version, the best physiological version, the best mental version of ourselves. Those are 5 domains of divinity that we have the ability to develop and access every moment of every day in our lives through the choices that we make in our lives. How do we treat one another as we go through the difficult times? That's a choice, and that's a reflection of our divinity. How do we nourish our bodies? Maybe it comes down to an even deeper question, Ervin. Do we love ourselves enough to become the best version of ourselves? Do we love ourselves enough to make the choice? What is the highest choice of nutrition that I can give myself today? What is the highest choice of language that I can use when I communicate with my loved ones or even with my adversaries in business? All of those are facets of our divinity. And as we become the best version of ourselves within, the world around us will reflect that in the choices we make in terms of energy, in terms of finance, in terms of business and cooperation, because it's all part of the same system. So I think it's such a big question, Ervin, that many people feel overwhelmed and they feel powerless because it is so big. But what it really comes down to is us and the way that we see ourselves in our mind, the way we feel ourselves in our heart, the way that we choose to live each moment of each day in our lives. And the little things that we do in life are what awaken those deep powers of our divinity. So I've had people say to me, Gregg, that's too simple. It can't be that simple. You know, we need a revolution somewhere. And this is the revolution. The revolution is allowing ourselves to think differently, even if it goes against the mainstream and the narratives and the academia and what we've all been conditioned to think. We are extraordinary beings, mysterious beings. We showed up 200,000 years ago. The truth is, we don't really know where we came from. We have theories, but we don't really know. And that we have extraordinary untapped potentials within us that when they are awakened are reflected in the choices and the technology and the policies and the laws that we enact around us. And in that way, we all play a part. Each of us plays a very vital role in the upshift. It cannot happen without us. That's the truth. The upshift begins in our hearts.
Absolutely. And it begins to take effect when we realize that it is not just something that it's up to us to choose or not to choose, when it's something which is there for us to follow, a deeper mission in the universe. Humanity is not here by chance. We are not just here today and disappear tomorrow. We have developed a level of consciousness that is unique, at least on this planet. The level, everything has consciousness, I'm convinced of it. The whole universe is conscious, but our level of consciousness, of being able to apprehend the world around us and eventually apprehend ourselves, that is surely unique in this corner of the universe. And that cannot be here done. It cannot be effect by chance. It cannot be just here by chance. It's because a conscious species was bound to emerge, probably emerging in other planets, in other galaxies, in other stellar systems. But here it's us, and we are here for a purpose, not just an ordinary divine purpose, the divine purpose in your sense, divinity as transcendence. I use a similar term, likewise taken from spirituality. I use this term sacred. We are facing a sacred mission not to allow this higher form of life and consciousness on this planet to disappear, to degenerate, to become extinct. A mission, an obligation, which is part of us as evolutionary beings, to carry this forward, to make evolution a dominant factor on this universe, a creative evolution in a conscious sense, evolution of our own life through our own mind, through our own deeper sense. We, as cosmic beings, have a sacred task, a sacred mission. If you recognize that, we know that we are here for a divine purpose, in your sense of divinity, to transcend ourselves, to create a world dominated by consciousness, by value, by life, by love on this planet. I am sure you agree that we can do that. You have been talking about this for decades.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that. So I'm just happy to have this chat with you, because I think we have to reinforce the message that you have been given already so many times. We need to move to the next level, transcend ourselves. We have not an arbitrary step. We have a true mission ahead of us. We are it, and it's in us. That holotropic, that holographic universe is in us. It's in our chromosomes. It's in our every cell of our body. To realize it, to achieve it, then we can move forward. Then we can really upshift to where to the next level, which is consciousness dominant and creative on this planet. That is our cosmic mission. And when you and I talk, I think that mission is becoming somehow palpable. We need to carry this forward. We need to make people understand it's real. And that here I hear to undertake it, to obey it, to follow it. It's possible. And perhaps we're starting already to follow it. We're already starting this upshift to the deeper level of a conscious, miraculous individual and a miraculous universe. So thank you again, dear Gregg. Your insights, your message that you have been giving us for many times is now more relevant than ever. We want to carry these conversations forward on the level of upshift to a level which is in us, but which we can recognize as externalizing, as bringing to the world, as infecting, informing, inspiring everything and everybody with the divine mission that is awaiting us. Gregg, share with us a concluding thought. How much should we take away from here?
Well, you know, Ervin, for the people that are watching this podcast, Ervin, your book, The Upshift, is the manual that spells out very clearly, very succinct, very concise steps that we can take as individuals, that we can take collectively. And I think one of the most important demographics for us to really focus this message is with the young people, Ervin, because I see young people all over the world who have never been told how precious and how sacred their lives are. And they've never been told how precious a human being is and what our potential is. They believe that AI and the computer chips are the answer. So as we can share this message with the young people who are inheriting the world and instill within them the values that ignite this passion for human life, and the values that say to them that there is so much more. They're not what they've been told. They're more than they have probably ever dreamed. And that this is our cosmic mission, is our evolutionary mission to allow our humanness to blossom into the fullest extent of what it means to be human. And my sense is, Ervin, once we do that, we'll feel less need for the technology. We'll feel less need for all of the things we're building outside of us, because we'll realize that we are that technology in a form that we haven't recognized in the past. So I'm going to invite everyone, if you haven't, The Upshift is the manual. And I want to thank everyone watching for all that you're doing to be the best version of yourselves. Ervin, you have been the light shower for so many years, and you have been so influential in my life in helping me to find the words and to awaken within people the very concepts that we're talking about right now. I want to thank you, my dear friend, for all that you're doing. All of your library of books, but The Upshift, I think, is the book of the time right now. And how much I appreciate the opportunity to have this brief conversation with you today. It means a lot to me. Just thank you, my dear friend.
Gregg, it's always a privilege to talk with you. That's what I said before we started. That's what I say now. It has been a privilege to talk with you. And I hope we can continue this privilege to work together for the upshift, for a next step in our evolution, which we can move forward ourselves because it's in us. Thank you for coming with me, for taking part in this conversation.
I look forward to it. Thank you. I look forward to our next.
So thank you so much, Gregg Braden and Dr. Ervin Laszlo.